What's going on, guys? Big welcome to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and today I'm here for you guys with the deck profile on Spike with a standard, so with a new support. But at the start of the video, there will be two parts. I will explain to you how you could build the deck the right way. This is my vision of the deck, so if you guys have a different idea on going into the deck, then of course you could do that. And also the build that I will show you is the one that is the most consistent. But if you're trying more the Grand Mobile or Gunwolf or other different builds, then you could do that as well, which is a build that focuses on different strategy but could also be very strong. This build is very consistent and it works in the different formats, and you could change the build a little bit around to make it better in the different format you're playing in. So before we go into the build, there is something very important I have to explain, and it's the uses or the choice between going with Force 1 or Force 2. There is a big difference while you go for Force 1 and Force 2, going with Spike. And it's all because of the new mechanic that cards like BullSpike enable, that you could move your marker around. Of course, all of you already know, if you have two Force 1 or more than one Force 1 and you move them around, then the power will stack. But if you have multiple Force 2s, then the power does not stack. So with that, you're getting actually nothing out of moving all 3 or 4 Force 2 markers around, except having that regular circle have a Force marker on it, which means your BullSpike would work, or the effect will work. So how do you choose to go for Force 1 or Force 2, and what are the best scenarios that you want to use Force 1 or Force 2? It actually all depends on your second grade 3 right target. So for your right targets for the grade 3s, we have BullSpike as in first, we have BadEndDragger, and we have Seifried. There are another grade 3s that you run in the deck, but I would say these are the right targets in the deck. So your second right target is the most important, is why you choose to go Force 1 or Force 2. If your right target, the second one, is BullSpike himself, then you go for Force 1. Why? Because then with BullSpike, you move your Force 1s around. So let's say that you ride first into BullSpike and you have another BullSpike in hand that you want to ride into, then you go Force 1. Let's say you have BadEndDragger and you have BullSpike in your hand, then you go Force 1, you give it to BadEndDragger, you attack with him, you give him a crit, and then you ride BullSpike, get Force 1 one more time. So now you have 2 markers, and your BadEndDragger will get the crit whenever he attacks, so that works perfect with Force 1. So riding into BadEndDragger, getting Force 1, then ride into Seifried, get Force 1. This is the best scenario that you want to go into. That's why people are now playing 3 or sometimes even 4 copies of BadEndDragger. If you go for Seifried first, then you could also go for Force 1. You put Force 1 on Seifried, you pressure with one of your Vanguard, you attack with Seifried, which put a lot of pressure on your opponent, even more than BullSpike as a first right target. And from that moment on, they have to guard this because they don't want to let it through. And then on the next right target, you go for BullSpike, you have 2 markers to move around. Okay, so that's if you want to ride into BullSpike for second. That's when you use Force 1. Okay, how about using Force 2? Well, let's say that your second right target is the General Seifried and your first right target is BullSpike for some reason. Because let's say that you want to pressure your opponent in the early game, you want to put them at high damage, or they are already at 4 damage and you want them to guard everything. And what you do, if they're chilling on 4 damage and you have these 2 in your hand, you have 2 scenarios to go into. You could go to Seifried first, use your counterblasters, make him a powerhouse, and attack with him using Force 1. But there is a better tactic, to go for BullSpike first and leave the Seifried in your hand as a second right target. Now you use Force 2. You attack with this using Force 2. You draw and you retire from your opponent because they don't want to let the attack go through because of their own 4 damage. Then you move your Force 2 marker around and it ends up being on one of the regular circles. If it's a regular circle with him, that's better because he will get the extra 10k even if your opponent turn. Some small details that you could keep in mind. And then you ride into the second General Seifried, create another force marker, which one of them is on this rearguard circle, the other one will be on the other rearguard circle. Then this rearguard will attack, he will attack, they have to guard this, otherwise this would restand, and he will attack and they would have to guard this too. So with this, you're creating the perfect strategy going into force 2. BadEndDragger in both situations, if you ride into him second, it's not that good. You don't want to ride into BadEndDragger as a second right target, you would rather call him as a rearguard. So BadEndDragger is more of a first right target or a very good rearguard. You could also take the BadEndDragger out to add in the Juggernaut Maximum. Where and when will the Juggernaut Maximum be better than BadEndDragger? It's whenever you use that strategy, you go to force 2. So if you ride into this first, you create force 2 marker, you move it around, you need a powerhouse, right? And that powerhouse is Juggernaut Maximum, because Juggernaut Maximum is really strong. Especially whenever you ride into your Seifried as a second right target, you activate the Seifried skill on the Juggernaut Maximum, you have a 33 attacker right there who could restand with the Juggernaut, with the ability of Seifried. So that's when you would use Juggernaut. Okay, so that's about it for the, let's say, explanation of the how to use your markers and when and where. And now we could just go with the deck profile. So you always start your deck with 4 copies of the BullSpike. If you're not playing 4 copies of BullSpike, then you're focusing more on Seifried, and with that you're playing the Grand Mobile or any other different strategy, which is good as well. But again, to make the deck more consistent, you go for BullSpike and a 4 copy of. Okay, 4 copies of BullSpike has 2 abilities, of course. The first one is whenever a unit attack, it's not once per turn, you could use it as much as you can or you want, which makes him a great in premium. And you Soul Blast 1, and then you move all of your force markers throughout the rearguard circle. And then the second ability is only once per turn whenever the attack does not hit with a unit which has a circle beneath it, and that circle has a force marker. Then this card pretty much gets you to draw a card and retire one of your opponent's rearguards. So it gives you kind of a field control, which makes this card really good. Especially riding into him first, creating force 2 marker, put a lot of pressure on your opponent, as I said before, does really work very good. And that's also the uses of force 2, because people think that force 2 is less good in this deck, but it's actually very good as well. Okay, now we come to the choices that you could make. I like to run 2 General Seifrieds. General Seifried is a good first right target, but also a good second right target. I like to put him at 2. I don't want to play him at 3 because I'm focusing more on BullSpike. If you want to focus more on the strategy to use force 2 with Juggernaut Maximum, so you're taking out the BadEndDragger, so you could do that, then I would rather play 3 copies of General Seifried. So the deck would look something like this. You have 3, 4, 3, and then the 3 Juggernaut Maxima, because the Juggernaut Maximum in this situation works better with force 2. So this could be it. Where is this deck not good? Well, if you don't have BullSpike first, you have to go to Seifried as a first right target. Then mostly you don't want to create force 2, you create force 1. So you create force 1 and then you go to BullSpike, and then you actually are missing the BadEndDragger, because the BadEndDragger will create or give you a crit. Also, in this current meta, we have a lot of decks that are very good at field removal. So we have Narukami, we have Murokumu, we have Shadows, we have Kagero, we have a lot of different decks that could just destroy your field. So having something like BadEndDragger, which already kind of destroys your field, but gives you a crit, it's better than having a Juggernaut Maximum, which pretty much they will destroy or kill or put back to your deck. And in this situation, you would rather empty up your field yourself, because then their skill will cost them still a counterblast and a card from hand, or a counterblast and the ability of Murokumu. But again, you don't have that much field for them to retire, but it's still good. And also this deck is less consistent because sometimes you have your Juggernaut Maximum in your hand as your only right target. Well, the deck that I play, which is different, so you play less grade 3s, which makes it better, give you a better early rush. You play only 9 and not 10, and that's when you play it like this. So 4, 3, 2. BadEndDragger is a very good first right target. Give you the field removal, column retirement, give you a crit whenever you call it as a Vanguard, +1. It's more than a +1 because it retires, but also it's a very good Vanguard. Riding into him first, then the BullSpike already creates a small good combo, as I told you before. And that's why, in my opinion, this is a very good grade 3 lineup. If you want to introduce something else to the deck, like Gun Wolf or Juggernaut Maximum or anything else, then you have to play more grade 3s. And I don't know if in Spike we should play more grade 3s. Even with having Ronaldo in the deck, I would rather not play more grade 3s. For the grade 2 lineup, some cards are very stable and very good, like the Needle. Needle is a card that I didn't expect that I will put into my deck, but with testing, this card is really strong and very good and very effective. It has like the same vibe into it as Bracky. While Bracky is good in the early game, while Bracky helps you to fill the soul, Needle becomes in handy in the later game. And that's why you play Needle at 3, because there is no reason to need to play him at 4. And you play Bracky at 4 because Bracky will always help to fill the soul. And this is pretty much your powerhouses of the deck. These two are the ones that do the work, do the dirty work, let's say. They attack, they destroy, and they become powerhouses. And that's also why Needle is very good in this deck, because whenever you move your force markers, you end up with moving them on the circle that he's chilling in, or on, chilling on. And with that, he becomes a 20k even in your opponent's turn, which is good. Then we have the callers. We have the 3 copies of Spike Bouncer and only 2 copies of Ronaldo. It depends on the deck that you play, how you change these around. Let's say that we play the version where you play the Juggernaut Maximum, so you play more grade 3s. Then I would rather play 3 on 2 or 4 on 1. But I would play 5. I think 5 is good. I like 5. Changing the amount of them in your deck is pretty much up to you and up to the deck that you play. If you play cards like this, then you would rather play Gyro Slinger and you would rather play more Ronaldos. If you play the Grand Mobile, the grade 3, then you would rather play Gyro Slinger and you would rather play Ronaldo. So pretty much that's how it works. Playing only 2 Ronaldos is good. Ronaldo works perfect with the BullSpike, especially if you go for Force 1, and especially if you're already chilling on grade 3, because you call the Ronaldo from your hand, which is 1 card, and then you put a card from your hand into the soul because you have enough counterblasts, because BullSpike does not use counterblasts. Then pretty much that will have you get a full field, because he will call 3. So you use 2 cards from your hand and you end up with having 4 rare cards. Well, with him, you end up having 3 rare cards, because you call him, he gets you an extra card, and then you call the cards from your hand that you put from this into your soul, then you end up having 3 rare cards. And that's why he is better in the later game. While he's good in the early game, because you call him or write into him, he gives you an extra card on the field. You could also put him into soul to draw a card, because this deck does not use a lot of counterblasts except by General Seifried. And with that, you pretty much gain advantage back. So in my opinion, in this format, I like to play it like this. And I would rather ride into the Spike Bouncer than ride into Ronaldo. And that's the difference. As I said, again, you could play for Ronaldos if you're very excited to try the card out. I could understand that. For the grade 1 lineup, we pretty much have different strategies going into it. I've seen people take Wonder Boy out to put Commander Gary Cannon. I've seen people put Gyro Slinger back to the deck. And for me, I'm more about getting hand advantage and getting cards into the soul. While Wonder Boy gets you cards into the soul, he also put cards from the drop zone back to your deck. which mean that you get more crits, but also your brackies will work better, and your general Seifried could still recall stuff that you don't have left in your deck. And that's why Wonder Boy, in my opinion, is a very good card. Problem with Wonder Boy is he's less good in the early game because you don't have that much in the drop zone yet. And cards like Gyro Slinger, cards like Commander Gary Cannon, they're better in the late, I would say in the early game. Gyro Slinger is better in both ways, early and late, but they're better than Wonder Boy. But I'm sticking with Wonder Boy for now. I think that maybe I will take him out because I've seen different ways that sometimes the Gyro Slinger is way better than the Wonder Boy, because the Gyro Slinger just one place and put a card from your hand into the soul. You get a card back, so it's a 1-for-1. It gets more power, but the very good thing that he does is just put that card into your soul right away. And that's what you need with BullSpike, because sometimes I end up with needing only one extra card on my soul, and that's why the Gyro Slinger is good. So playing Wonder Boy at 4, I will show you the different ways you could do this. Wonder Boy at 4, then you also play the Offensive Punter. Offensive Punter is a stable, so I will definitely leave this card in and not take it out in any different build that you play. Sometimes even in premium, this card is just amazing. If you don't know what it does, it's pretty much when you ride on the top of him, he comes out of your soul, and whenever he boosts an attack, he could get an extra 2k, which makes him a 10k, perfect boosting grade 3. And with that, he goes back to the bottom of the deck at the end of the battle and you draw a card. So again, very stable. Definitely leave him at 4. And then you have the option to play Jackie or not. I play her because, again, in this format, your opponent is just destroying your field. So that's why you play the 2 copies of her. You could put her on the field, you could attack with that Vanguard, she activates the ability, put that Vanguard into the soul whenever it has the force marker, of course, and then you draw a card, which means you have that soul to use for your BullSpike. And the last card I play is the 2 Snapper Devil. Snapper Devil is good if you get to ride into him, if you go second. So only 2 copies of him in here because both of them are good ride targets. Snapper Devil also becomes very handy if you have enough counterblasts to move around or to use around. Both of them becomes very good with that, and that's why we play him at least at 2. I like the amount of him having at 2. Okay, how to change the deck around? Well, pretty much you could take out Jackie and 1 Wonder Boy to put in the 3 Gyro Slingers. This works really good. The Gyro Slinger helps with filling the soul, and again, you do not need counterblast for him. And then you take out the Wonder Boys to put the Commander Gary Cannon. So it would be like 4 Offensive Punter, 3 Gyro, 3 Commander Gary Cannon, and the 2 Snapper Devil. This could also work. What's the difference between these two? Well, him costing a card from your hand, sometimes that card is a defensive card. Most of the time, you put a crit, you put a heal, you put some stuff in there, a great one that you don't need. But you do put cards from your hand into the soul that are mostly defensive, because if they are good offense card, then you would just put them on the field. The only cards you could put into your soul without having any problems is, let's say, a grade 3 that you don't need anymore, like a Seifried, or the 3rd BullSpike, or the 4th BullSpike. So pretty much Gyro Slinger is good, but he costs you cards from hand, which makes him good aggressively, but less good defensively. And again, if you're playing as Narukami, then with 1 counterblast, they destroy your front row. With a 2nd counterblast, they destroy him and all of your back row. So with that, they lose 2 cards from hand, but it's still much. And with cards like Jackie, if you play her, she pretty much already gives you the counterblast and a draw. And again, it's really, really good because you get the card value back to your hand. And then we come to the conclusion why I chose to play this. And for the Wonder Boy, pretty much I like putting triggers back to my deck. And I still think that Wonder Boy is a very good card because he switches lanes. That's the thing that I love about Wonder Boy. You put him in a column when he makes, let's say, 16. 16 is a great number when attacking into the grade 2s. But then when they go to grade 3, you switch him to the other column and you make the 18 numbers, the 28 numbers, the 23 numbers. And on this column, you move that grade 1 back that you just put there, and you put another grade 3 in there, or a grade 2. And with that, you could make, like, let's say with him, with a grade 3, you can make the 23 columns. And with him with a grade 2, you can make the 28 or the 18 columns. And that's why I like Wonderboy a lot, because he could change columns. And also, that's why he's so good. And just putting triggers back, putting the right cards back. And that's why, again, I play the deck like this. Okay, now we go to the grade 0s. Of course, for our starter, we still play Mega Trainer. I'm pretty much a little bit sad we didn't get another starter, being not a Mega Trainer or Mega Trainer with a different art, because it would have been fun to have more different starters. But again, Bushiroad is getting a little bit lazy. The same with the heal. I expected us to get at least a different art, but we didn't. So I'm keeping the 4 TRs in here because yeah, you do need heals, which I will explain later. We also play the 4 draw PGs, of course, needed and good. And then we play 8 crits, being Silent Jokers or the new cute crits. So the 8 crits in here works best. You do not really need more because you still have the option to create Force 1 or Force 2. The draw PGs are needed. And now we come to the important detail into the deck. When I first started testing this deck, I remove the crits and I add in more. I remove the heals, and I add more crits. I also add in 6 draws, so you could play 6 draws, 10 crits. That could also work, especially with Force 2. But pretty much whenever I did that, I did feel the need that I need my heals. Why? Countercharge engine makes a huge difference in standard, because sometimes your opponent crits you to death and the heals will give you a comeback. Healing and damage in standard is a huge difference, because it means you could take more, keep more in your hand. And one very important detail is the shield value we have on the crit. The shield value is something very, very important, especially when you play against decks like Aquaforce, when it's said you could guard with 1 card. So stuff like that does make a big difference by you playing these heals. And that's why I think that it's still good to play heals in standard, and even in Spike. I expected myself to play more crits, now we have her, but there's no need. Especially with having the Force 2, there is no need. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the deck profile. I would be very happy to see which deck you are playing right now, or how you build your deck. Some things are still for me for testing, like having the Gyro Slinger into the deck, or Commander Gary Cannon making a comeback, or leaving the Wonder Boy and Jackie in there is something that is for testing, and depending on the format that you're playing in. With the format right now, with the field wipe cards that we have, cards like Ronaldo could make a huge difference, but also cards like Jackie will give you the advantage back that you need, and putting like your Wonder Boys back to your deck is not bad. But putting your Commander Gary Cannons into your deck, because Commander Gary Cannon, if he does not hit, then he pretty much is stuck there, and you cannot get rid of him. Your opponent could get rid of him, but you don't want him in your deck. And that's pretty much it for this deck profile. Yet again, thank you guys for watching. Until next time.